Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of the Cinematropolis.com, your home to thoughtful conversations on film, and this year's podcast media partner for the deadCenter Film Festival. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and today we're taking a closer look at another one of this year's most anticipated Oklahoma feature films, Out of Exile. We'll be sitting down with a few of the filmmakers behind the Oklahoma set crime drama, including writer-director Kyle Kauwika Harris and stars Adam Hampton, Kyle Jacob Henry, and Hayley McFarland. We'll start with a quick word about what inspired the story before going further into what makes this film a must-see movie at this year's festival. And then we'll close out the conversation by talking a little bit more about how you can watch this film at the festival.
Mr. Russell, how would you say things have been for you since your return to society?
It's good to have you back.
There's one last job. It's got to be smooth. This one we can't lose.
What do you got going on? What are you doing? Flanking me? I ain't going down like that, son.
I've got a problem.
It's going to hell to pay.
Gabe, what are we gonna do?
I'm gonna get him.
I guess we play the game to be done.
According to the shortened version of the description from the deadCenter website, Out of Exile is described as recently released from prison, Gabriel Russell returns to work from his previous organized crime boss, Whitman Rader, by robbing armored cars and banks with the help of his brother, Wesley, an ex-Army Ranger suffering from post-traumatic stress, and his best friend, Marcos, an illegal immigrant. With the intent of saving enough money from each score, Gabriel secretly plans to leave behind a life of crime forever and hit the road out of town, but his plans change when he reconnects with his estranged daughter, who is suffering from physical abuse. Joining me today, as I mentioned a moment ago, is the writer and director of Out of Exile, Kyle Kauwika Harris. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. You got my middle name right. That's good on you, man. Kauwika. Some people pronounce it all kinds of weird.
I had two different takes, so I'm glad I got it right the first time. I appreciate you, sir. Also, super excited to be joined by three of the stars. First up, Adam Hampton, who plays Gabriel Russell. Adam, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And we are so thrilled to also be joined by Kyle Jacob Henry, who plays Wesley Russell. Kyle, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
And last, but certainly not least, I'm so excited to be joined by Hayley McFarland, who plays Dawn Russell. Hayley, welcome to the Cinematic Schematic.
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Well, everyone, now that you know who the players are, let's get to the interview. But before we do get to today's conversation, I just wanted to quickly note that if you're listening to the show and you enjoy the conversation, you can support us by subscribing and leaving us a rating and review on your preferred podcast app. And this is actually also going to be the best way for you to get all the exclusive deadCenter interviews and reviews and conversations delivered directly to your ears throughout the festival. But let's talk about Out of Exile, shall we? Kyle. A thing that really struck me about this film is that you really do a tremendous job framing this as another one, like a one last job heist movie, which again, I think is a really exciting genre that we haven't seen a ton of made here in Oklahoma. So what was your main inspiration for tackling this specific genre?
Man, I just like crime thrillers. That's mostly what in my brand of writing, it's mostly what I write. So I think it's the most fun to kind of do. There wasn't really any specific reason for it, I guess. And when I first wrote the movie, I wasn't sure we were going to make it here in Oklahoma. It might have been made in Georgia. It might have been made in LA. But we ended up making it here because the pandemic happened and some things happened with some financing things. And we decided to push through and just make it here in Oklahoma. But I just like crime thrillers. I'm mostly drawn to those as a storyteller.
It's interesting to hear that you weren't sure if you were going to shoot it in Oklahoma, because one thing that really stuck out to me was the variety of locations that you guys used around the state. Especially if you're thinking about, hey, this could be this setting or this state. How did you and your team settle on the locations?
Okay, well, at first I'd have to say that our locations manager, Kenny Pitts, was hugely vital in helping us secure those locations. As an independent filmmaker, you should probably never write over 30 plus locations in your indie darling movie. I think we had more shooting locations than we had shooting days. But, I think for me, I wanted the locations to feel authentic. So when we walk into those spaces, it feels like it's lived in. It seems like it's cinematic. And so we looked at a lot of different locations. We looked for weeks and weeks to find these locations. And there's only a couple that we end up losing. So I think we were very lucky when it came to that.
Just ballpark. I mean, do you know how many total locations you used for the film?
Probably about 35, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
One thing that really struck me was just every place feels really unique. I also noticed all the really great camera work that you and your team was doing between the camera work and the editing and the utilization of the drone footage. How did you guys map out the shoots? But I would focus on the heists especially.
Luckily for us, we trained, me, Adam, and the other guys that were the robbery crew. We spent a lot of time training. We spent about 3 weeks solid just training, going over it, rehearsing in the scene. And we had our DP, which is Charles Elmore. He'd come out there with us and we would sort of block it and run through it a lot. And so we knew when we finally got to the location that we weren't going to have a lot of time. So as long as our actors were, ready to rock and roll, the technical would catch up once we got there, if that makes sense. Because again, being an independent film, very small budget, the thing that's always working against us is time. So we had to be very prepared. And I don't even know if the guys had even seen the location before we started filming. I had seen it, but we just sort of did a mock setup out at the gun range and used cones to set up with an SUV. And I'd known because I'd seen the location, so I knew how to mind map that. Yeah, I mean, we just got there and we had, I think, half a day to shoot that scene. And we had to, with that, shooting that scene, we had to integrate the drone stuff in that because I wanted the armored car had to land in its place before we started filming everything else. It needed to land. So we had to go out and shoot all of the armored car stuff first that morning and then get the drone. And sometimes we were shooting in tandem. The time was just, it was a crunch. Yeah.
Yeah, Adam, of course, you were an integral part of that heist in the film. I mean, what was your experience, shooting the heists?
Well, I mean, I'd have to echo what Kyle's saying about the importance of the preparation. That was really the fun part to me. I mean, being on the day is exciting, of course, but putting in the work is really where you get the growth and the development with the team. And I think while we're preparing for the heist, we're also building those relationships with the robbers. And so it was really functional and fortuitous in a couple of ways, because it is that bonding experience, which is a lot of fun. But then we're prepping for the day so that whenever we are masked up and gunned up and running around, bank parking lots, we're ready to go. It was a blast. I can't speak highly enough about the choreography, Kyle's direction. He knew exactly what he wanted out of those scenes. And Matt, our armor, Matt Moulton, and Charles, our shooter, they worked in concert, just like we did in front of the camera. They were doing the same dance behind it. It was really exciting to be a part of it.
Awesome. Kyle Henry?
Yeah, of course, the preparation with Matt Moulton, Kyle, Adam, having Charles there as well, just building that brotherly bond and kind of going through the motions together. It all started there. Personally, that was my favorite part of the whole entire filming process was that, I believe, every Wednesday or Thursday. And so when it's all said and done, moving over to actual day one, which was my first SAG day, hitting the ground running more or less, there wasn't much thinking about it. I remember I put on War Pigs by Black Sabbath. I had that music going after we put on all of our gear. Just kind of get the head bobbing going and all that. Our job was to simply just do what Matt Moulton trained us, and it was the easiest thing ever. Only thing I'm sad about is how fast it went by. There was Kyle directed it well. Of course, we always look at ourselves wondering from an acting perspective, did I get that right? And all that, but when it's all said and done, it looked beautiful. Another regret is just I didn't steal all the costuming and armor and the weapon to bring home and play with. I mean, yeah, I miss it. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Adam, was this one of the first times you'd done sort of like a bank robbery or a heist for a feature film?
Definitely at this magnitude. We had done the 48-hour video race where we shot a bank robbery that I think was sort of the impetus for this feature. That's when I first worked with Kyle. Well, for the most part, first worked with Kyle Henry. So we'd had that experience out of 48, which is a great argument for why you should be a part of 48-hour video races, just getting into the swimming pool in a very short amount of time. But at this level, absolutely. I mean, I've done some fight scenes and whatnot, but in terms of the madness that our deviant director had worked up for us, yeah, this is the biggest scale on that I've been a part of.
Very cool. And I mean, you mentioned Kyle Henry here. I mean, you and him, your characters have a somewhat contentious brotherly relationship throughout the film. How did you go about establishing quick chemistry with him?
Man, this was working on this film, getting to play the character I got to play, and the interaction with the really vibrant collection of faces in the movie. It was awesome because everything was. All these experiences were different. So like if you're in a play, for example, and everybody gets together and you're all like locked in a room for 3 months, everybody kind of has the same amount of exposure. I didn't know Hayley. So my experience with her getting on the set and then her surprising me with almost every line she was throwing at me, breaking my heart every dang time, was very different than my experience with, say, Kyle or Wilson Novice. Kyle Henry is a phenomenal actor. He, if he could learn to wear sleeves, people would realize how gifted he truly is, because he's so driven and he's so focused and he's so dedicated. We started bonding when Kyle cast us, whether it was competing with push-up contests at 3 a.m. or just picking on each other, really trying to figure out where the characters were and how they rubbed up against each other. Because I do think that he provides sort of a fire with the character of Wes to the colder demeanor of Gabe, and I think that gives a lot of really interesting tension. And man, he every day on set he brought it. I cannot speak highly enough of him.
Kyle Henry, what was your take on working with Adam and sort of building that chemistry for the shoot?
I mean, it was one of the most easiest and simplest things that I've ever done. There really wasn't a lot of work put into building the chemistry as much as there was. It was a lot of natural conversations, just hanging out together. Really, Adam and I we haven't known each other that long, anything like that. And only took a couple years to more or less establish that brotherly bond of just more or less being on the same page and stuff with character depth and always trying to find the same result and always wondering how this scene moves on to this scene and how this character, how he acts in this scene. Well, what's that going to mean 5 minutes down the road? And just kind of sharing that intensity for it is pretty beautiful. Working with Adam, huge blessing. The guy, I mean, Adam, you were a blessing, brother. And you really taught me a lot to kind of slow down. Yeah, I could say a million words as much as I can't, but it was a humbling experience working with everybody.
Now, Hayley, I have to just say, I mean, you really, in most ways, I would say, play the emotional heart of Out of Exile. So I'd love to hear a little more about your experience. I mean, how did you approach your scenes with Adam for these really pivotal moments?
Adam and I met, I think, the night before I started shooting. I got there pretty quickly, and we shot my stuff out in a few days. And I think it was very helpful just kind of diving in, because Gabe and Dawn don't really know each other. And, I had kind of come prepped I had talked with Kyle about the character a lot, and it created for me kind of an environment where neither of us really knew what was going to happen. We didn't know what the other person was bringing. And so I couldn't have expected Adam to be as he's such an empathetic and generous scene partner. And for me, coming to it with the resentment and the anger that Dawn had, it really threw me off, off kilter a little bit in a way that it was exciting for me.
One thing I noticed, you probably have, the most prosthetic makeup of anyone in the film at one point. With I won't spoil it, but it's a couple of specific scenes in the film. About how long did it take you in makeup every day, and what was that process like?
Katie, our makeup artist, was so talented, and I knew them from I had done Agnes. I worked on Agnes with Katie and Taylor, the hair person, and yeah, I feel like it took maybe a little more than an hour, and that was a very weird thing to work with, the like eye, and it started to kind of, I feel like it kind of fueled my performance a little bit, because I started to get very frustrated with it after 8 hours of being in it.
Kyle, I want to bring it back to you. You've got a great cast here. You've got Hayley, you've got Adam, you've got Kyle Henry. So, what was your favorite part about working with this incredible cast to tell this story?
That's a tough question, man. It's because I loved every moment of this. Matter of fact, I hope that every film from here on out is like this. Honestly, for me as a filmmaker, it was the dream. Honestly, it was not a hard shoot for me. I don't think, looking back, I don't feel like I was ever really frustrated or anything. I mean, obviously, there's some compromise, and you wish you had more time. But these actors, for me, when I watch this film, I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the actors and the way they brought their characters to life and embodied these characters. And I'm super proud of it. They brought the script to life. A lot of times I like to write, or if in directing, I like to cast sort of with a natural disposition or temperament for the character already. So I'm not pushing a rock uphill or anything like that. So, when I cast someone like Peter Green, it's because he's played some bad guys before, and I knew I wasn't going to have a lot of time on set, and so I wanted to get someone that's played that role in some ways similar. And so it just helped the process a little bit. But, like with Adam, for instance, and Kyle, we'd worked together on the Prone to Violence short film. And like Adam had mentioned earlier, we after we finished that short, we started talking and we were like, let's expand this into a feature. And so I wrote it for these guys. So I took what Adam brings naturally, and I took what Kyle has naturally, and I sort of infused that into Out of Exile. Obviously, Prone to Violence is not the same movie. It's not the same story. It's different, but a lot of the same. There's a lot of similarities there. But yes, I am so proud of it. They did such an amazing job, and I can't wait for everybody to see it.
Awesome. Well, hey, appreciate you all sharing a little bit about your experience here today. We're going to start to wrap up here, but I just wanted to give each one of you a chance to weigh in with a final word. Is there anything else you'd like to add about Out of Exile for our listeners today before we wrap up our conversation? And Adam, I'll start with you.
Okay, no pressure. That's cool. No, man, I can't speak highly enough about this team. I mean, it sounds cliche anytime somebody does that. But I mean, when you look at the hardships, and I don't like making an asterisk film as in we shot it and it was low budget, or we shot it and it was during COVID, or those are, you're handicapping the work that you've done. I think you're reducing the beauty of it. The people that we worked with, this team, of course, I mean, and I could sing the praises of these three people. I truly loved working with them. Every actor that I got to encounter, whether it was Peter Green or Danny Boy or Van Quattro, Rhett Terrell, Wilson Knob, every person brought it. And while there was, I think this feels like a bigger movie. It was shot with the passion and grit of an indie. So we sort of did away with comfort and really pushed ourselves, I think. As a person who got to play a primary character of the film, I got to interact with these people. So that's a beautiful aspect to it, that while they weren't talking, whenever I'm having scenes with Kyle Henry, passionate scenes about wanting to protect my daughter, I'm picturing Hayley and the performance that I just witnessed 2 days before that he hasn't been privy to. So that makes the acting portion of it so much less than acting and more just like truly feeling. The script encouraged that. Kyle's direction supports that, and it was truly a beautiful thing to be a part of. I loved every second of it.
Awesome. Kyle Henry, how about you?
Yeah, I'm just very excited for everybody to see the authenticity. Kyle, you wrote something beautiful, allowed us to do our thing and all that, and respected boundaries. And that's one of the most beautiful sides, is everybody being creatively on the same page, sharing the overall vision, and very, very, very excited. For the world to see it.
Excellent. Hayley, final word.
I just feel so lucky to have been a part of this. I mean, Adam and Kyle are so talented, and the crew was amazing. We have so many multi-talented crew members in Oklahoma that I've gotten to work with a couple times, luckily. And yeah, they're so smart and cool and amazing, and having a leader like Kyle, who has such a strong sense of the story and everything, it was so smooth and nice. And yeah, I'm excited for people to see it.
Kyle, wrap us up here. Bring us home.
Sing the praises of the cast and crew. Everybody did an amazing job. It was a beautiful experience. I wish that every film going forward was like this. I don't know how other filmmakers are on sets. I don't know if it's a stressful environment for them or what. I don't know. But for me, this was a lot of fun. I had a blast working with this cast and crew. The guys, for the training, it was so much fun. I hope that every film is like that going forward, getting to work with actors 3 weeks before they ever get to the set. I wish that I had a lot of time to work with Hayley and Peter and a lot of the other actors that were only there on set for 3 or 4 days. And piggyback off what Hayley said, it's because of, the pandemic that was happening, we weren't able to sort of communicate in a way that maybe that we all wanted it to. But I'm still very proud of the film. I can't wait for audiences to finally see it at the premiere, and to finally hear what audiences think about it. And versus, it's been in the cast and crew family for so long at this point, right? And so it's I'm ready for it to sort of go out into the world now. But I'm super excited about this week. It's good to be back at deadCenter. It's been a few years.
Yeah, well, welcome home. Well, hey, everyone, I just wanted to say congratulations on the world premiere of Out of Exile. I think this is going to be one thing that viewers and everyone at the festival are really going to enjoy. So listeners, really quick, the world premiere will be Thursday, June 9th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time at Harkins Bricktown, with an encore screening scheduled for Saturday, June 11th at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time at the Rodeo Cinema. And Kyle, is there anywhere people can follow the film online if they perhaps want to keep up with it after deadCenter?
Yeah, there is an Out of Exile Instagram and Facebook page. Right now, the marketing campaign hasn't really taken off since the distributors picked up the film. So in the coming months, the marketing campaign for the film will start to come out, and we will release a trailer later this year, and hopefully the film on VOD at the end of the year.
Excellent. Listeners, for all other things deadCenter, you can head over to deadcenterfilm.org. Consider supporting the festival by purchasing a badge or individual ticket from the more than 140 films playing at this year's festival. Thanks so much to everyone for joining us. We'll catch you again next time.